why don't we get to something special here? Jeff, let's bring on our guests. We've got former USC Trojan, top draft pick in 1996, and now the host of ESPN's morning program, Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max, Keyshawn Johnson. Bob Glauber, Newsday columnist who's covered football since 1985. They are both the authors of the new book out this week, The Forgotten First, Kenny Washington, Woody Strode, Marion Motley, Bill Willis, and the Breaking of the NFL Color Barrier. Guys, thanks so much for giving us some time. Congratulations on the fantastic book.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It is so great to get to have you both on the show. It's fascinating to read it. I'm wondering, where did the idea, whichever one of you want to go first, where did the idea come from, and why was now the right time to write it?
Well, I think the right time, the idea came from Bob, and the right time was to write it now. Going through everything that we went on, that we've had to deal with over let's just call it 18 months. Let's call it 2 years to be good with it, because we obviously know it goes further back than that. But when you have the biggest situation going on in the unrest and the George Floyd murder and just other countless things that was going on in our country, people's ears start to raise like rabbits, and minds start to race. And ideas are put, and people want to be curious about different things. And when Bob approached me about it after doing a couple of years of thinking himself, he decided to reach out to me and present an opportunity of a lifetime by saying, hey, I'm thinking about, writing this particular book, and I want you to participate with me and collaborate with me on this project. And so from there, I just kind of said, oh, okay, let me look into it, and took a day or so to look into it, and then talked back to Bob and said, I'm all in, boots on the ground, let's go.
Keyshawn, you grew up not far from one of the people that is the subject of this book. When you hear about that, does it frustrate you that even in that area that this was not a bigger story? Because I got to tell you, as somebody who's had a kid grow up who Jackie Robinson is beloved to him, to hear that these stories have not been told sooner, does that frustrate you?
It frustrates me from that standpoint that I didn't know when I was growing up in school that this was there. I knew that Jackie Robinson, Jesse Owens, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, I knew those things because society taught us those things in school. But I didn't know about Black Wall Street. I didn't know about that. I didn't know that we had, as blacks in America, that we had a stable neighborhood community environment, that it was torched, burned down 100 years. Like I didn't know any of that because it wasn't told to me. It was buried. I didn't know that 4 black men were the first 4 African-American football players to be reintegrated back into the National Football League after a simple hiatus of 12 years when we were basically banned from playing professional football. I didn't know that. They didn't tell me that in school. So it is frustrating. It's senseless to me at times, and I always want to know, why do people do stuff like what is wrong with people in the world? But you'll never get the answers of it. You'll never get those answers.
We find ourselves asking those same questions regularly, but you talk about 12 years of having nobody in the NFL. Bob, from the NFL's perspective, I found it interesting. I learned so much reading this, but I didn't know about the importance of the move of the Cleveland Rams to Los Angeles and a taxpayer-funded commission. Can you tell the story about that and how that kind of opened some eyes?
Yeah, that was really the beginning of reintegration in the NFL. So the Cleveland Rams win the NFL championship in 1945, and they want to move to Los Angeles because Dan Reeves, the team owner, is not making enough money in Cleveland. He knows that Paul Brown is about to start up the Cleveland Browns of the All-America Football Conference in 1946. So he says, I got to get out of here. I got to go to a place where I can make some money, and he chose Los Angeles. And he basically thought it was going to be a rubber stamp deal where, okay, LA is going to accept a pro football team. Great, here we go. let's do it. Well, they get before the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum Commission, and there were several influential black sports writers at the time, one of whom, Hallie Harding, really pushed publicly to say, whoa. You want to play in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, a publicly owned, publicly funded building that was built in part by black workers, and you want to bring your team here, an all-white team, and not have any black players on your team? No. And that stopped that meeting of the commission in January. It just, like, everything went silent. And the Rams, Chili Walsh was the general manager at that time, was described as just having gone completely pale and saying, what is this? What's happening? So it was a very serious movement. And that changed, and that meeting really changed the history of pro football in a lot of ways, because it forced the Coliseum Commission to look at it, and they basically brokered a deal to have Kenny Washington. He was the preferred player that they wanted on that team because he was a very popular player in Southern Cal, played at UCLA, starred, played semi-pro ball, and he was the guy that Hallie Harding targeted as the perfect person to join the Rams and at least have a shot at playing pro football. And they finally agreed. The Rams said, okay, we'll do it. Now, they didn't do it willingly. They were forced into it because if they don't do it, they don't get a stadium. So they did it. And I think that's one reason why maybe this story is not embraced so much. Like Jackie Robinson was a purposeful signing. This was, they had to push for this. But it happened nonetheless, and history was changed forever.
You mentioned Kenny Washington along with Woody Strode. You have a chapter in the book where you talk about their relationship with Jackie Robinson. They all played in the same backfield. Can you talk about them? Because I found it interesting that, again, everybody knows the Jackie Robinson story at this point, but people don't know the Kenny Washington or the Woody Strode story.
Yeah, really fascinating because, Jackie Robinson was a star player at Pasadena Junior College, and everyone wanted to recruit him. A lot of schools wanted to recruit him, especially on the West Coast. And UCLA went after him pretty hard, and it was a fairly liberal-minded school and athletic department at the time, and they got him. So Jackie joins Woody Strode and Kenny Washington on the same offense, and now Woody and Kenny are best friends. So it was a little bit of, they didn't embrace him warmly. He was their teammate, and they got along, but it wasn't particularly warm. And Jackie was going through stuff in his own right. He lost his older brother, who was his closest person in life, to a motorcycle accident not long before he went to UCLA. So he was kind of a brooding personality, and it wasn't always smooth sailing. I think Woody Strode described it as Jackie having a chip on his shoulder. So it was a little bit uncomfortable, but they got along, and they had a phenomenal season. They were unbeaten that year and almost won a national championship. They had a 0-0 tie against Keyshawn Johnson's USC Trojans, and couldn't win that championship. That's all right. He knows. But I'll tell you what, that they played to a 0-0 tie, the last game of an unbeaten season, and there's USC and UCLA fans, 103,000 of them in that building, and they all stood up and roared when Kenny Washington came off the field for the last time to pay tribute to that career, because he almost pulled out that game, and he was the main driver of that season. And then Jackie, they played baseball in 1939 or 1940 season, and Kenny was clearly the better player, and Jackie was not. And they got along, but it wasn't like buddy say like Woody Strode and Kenny Washington.
Guys, this book is, to me, a start. It's, first of all, it's a history book. It's important that everybody read this story. But for people like Keyshawn, do you see the NFL now, instead of kicking and screaming, being led into these places, now honoring these four individuals and doing something similar to what we do with Jackie Robinson?
I think so. I think with the understanding that it's okay to honor African Americans. It's okay to do something, step outside the box, do something that hasn't been done before. It's okay. The NFL has to understand it's okay. No, the sponsors aren't going to pull out. Nobody's going to boo you. People aren't going to stop watching. It's okay now. This is the reality of the league. You told a story forever about the National Football League and professional football, but you didn't tell this story. And so now you have to tell this story with the other stories that you tell in the National Football League with no hesitation.
We want to make sure we value your time, and so I could ask you so much more. In the book, you go into the people who blocked integration, like the Washington owner, or the people who helped it along, like Paul Brown. But I'll kind of go to my last one and ask, what's the legacy of these four men as it comes to the NFL and where they rate in history?
Well, I think it's an important legacy, and I think it's a legacy that those guys didn't understand they owned at the time they played. And it sounds a little weird, but they were athletes, and they were out to compete and play and win. And I don't know that they fully understood the importance of their role and how they came first and others followed. Now, Motley and Willis certainly came to understand that. I don't know that they were appreciated enough in Cleveland. They're having the 75th anniversary celebration of the founding of that franchise. I think it's this weekend, and I don't know if they're going to single out those two guys, but they should. And Kenny and Woody, they played. They loved to play football, and they understood it to some degree, but they were just playing. And I think it's fair to look back at them and say, what they did was really important. And even if it wasn't publicized at the time, Keyshawn and all the players that came after owe a debt of gratitude. And I think we owe a debt of gratitude to these guys who kind of started something that has blossomed into what the NFL is right now.
Keyshawn, do you have any thoughts after writing the book before we let you guys go?
My thought is that I hope and I pray that the NFL honor them, much like Major League Baseball honored Jackie Robinson. Give them a day. We see where they honor many things. We see where they have no issue honoring others. Give them that opportunity. And I also would hope that many universities that teach history across the world tap into our book, not for financial gain for us, but for the education that this book could possibly bring to many, many people across the world to understand how things have changed from 1946 to where we are today.
Well, we hope that your book starts to bring the attention that these men deserve. The book again out this week, The Forgotten First, Kenny Washington, Woody Strode, Marion Motley, Bill Willis, and the Breaking of the NFL Color Barrier. Go get it today. You won't be disappointed. Bob and Keyshawn, thanks so much for the time. We hope we get to talk to you again.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks very much. Thank you.